Now we want to be able to remove items from the list, right? So the list items, we want each list item to have its own delete button. So our list item is going to get a lot more complicated. And eventually I'm going to add buttons to move it up and down the list. I'm going to add a button to edit it. I'm going to add a button to fave it. All kinds of crazy stuff. So our render list item thing is going to get pretty crazy if we continue down the path, our current course. So we're going to do it a little differently. I know document.createElement is your dear friend. We're going to start doing it a different way. It'd be really nice if we could actually write this stuff as HTML, right? Instead of saying document.createElement, this and that. So here's an idea. What if we put an empty one in the DOM from the very beginning and we just copy it each time? That sounds a lot easier. Only downside is then we'll have this stupid blank li there. So we just hide it. We just hide the empty one. Sound reasonable? Let's do it that way. I like it. Good plan. So in my HTML, inside my list here, I'm going to go ahead and put a list item. Eventually, I'm going to want to style these flicks pretty specifically, so I'm going to go ahead and give my li a class flick. And inside there, I'm going to have the name of the thing as well as one or more buttons. And I'm going to want to make it easy to target either of those things. So I'm going to put a span around the title of the movie. Span is the generic inline element, whereas a div is the generic block level element. So inline element means there's no line break around it. It just comes in the middle of a line wherever. And it doesn't have any inherent semantic meaning. So I'll give the span a class of flick name so I can find it. And then I'm going to put a span for all the buttons. I'm going to give that span a class of actions. I'm going to put a bunch of buttons in there. Just for the sake of styling this and seeing what it looks like on the page, I'm going to put a flick name in here. You don't necessarily need to do this. I'm going to do it for right now so it'll be easy to check this in the browser. What was that crazy one where he was like a werewolf or something? The Wachowski movie. You know what I'm talking about? Jupiter Ascending. Never saw that either. Sure. And then actions, let's just put one button in there. Button. We learned that if you give it a class of button, Foundation will do some styling on it. And I'll just put del for delete. We know we're going to add a fave button eventually. I'll go ahead and stick the button in there, even though it's not going to do anything yet. And I'll stick it before delete. I'll put delete on the end. Fave. Okay, so this is my little list item.
How did you indent it with your keyboard?
Oh, yeah. Indenting and outdenting with your keyboard, Command or Control on Windows, right bracket, left bracket. Right bracket indents, left bracket outdents, and yes, you can select multiple lines. Yeah, I can't believe I got this far into class without saying that. Thank you for asking. Let's see how this looks. It's there. It's ugly. First of all, it's got a bullet on it, and I don't think I want bullets. I think we learned yesterday you could do list style None. We have Foundation in here. It's possible that Foundation has something built in for that, maybe. Oops, that's the CDN. I want the Foundation documentation. Yeah. There we go. Let's see. Where would I guess this is? Maybe typography? Controls? Containers? Lists? No. Let's look here. List. We're going to use button group too. Yeah. Let's see. Bullet. What if I search for bullet? Really, this isn't very searchable. Where do they put this? Oh, maybe it is under typography. Who the heck knows? Let's search that page for list. Totally is. It's under typography base styles. There we go. And then I search the page for list. Unordered list. That's the default style. Definition list. It still calls it definition list instead of description list. Isn't it going to tell us how to change it? Come on. Come on, you. That's not on this page either. Helper classes. Helper classes. That's totally going to be it. Yep. An unbulleted list. Add the class no bullet. So to my UL here, let's add the class no bullet. Would have been a lot easier to write it ourselves. But now that we know it's there. Now, good. That's gone at least. Still not the most handsome thing in the world. It's okay. We could see about using Foundation's grid system to lay this thing out. Let me see if it still works the way it used to before I start explaining it. So give me just a second to try it. Okay, it does. So, like Bootstrap, if you have used that, there's a grid system built into Foundation, and it can be a little complex, but it's nice, and it's been updated to support CSS Grid, which is a fairly new specification, but it also works with Flexbox. The class I'm using here, I think, should be mostly Flexbox based. Do you have a question? I will in a second. Yeah, I'm going to explain this first. So the XY grid does all kinds of crazy stuff. Basically what I'm doing here, grid X on the container here, the list item, is telling it to use the grid. Align middle is telling it to vertically center this thing. So you'll notice, well, no, maybe it's not doing that. Because it looks like Jupiter Ascending is not lined up with the center of these buttons. I'll have to mess with that. Let's look at how big each of these things is. So let's see. Yeah, the name is taking up most of the space, and there's just enough room left over for the buttons. So auto cell and shrink cell here are saying basically all the leftover space, give it to this one. This grid's got two things in it, the first span and the second span. Cell is telling it, these are things inside my grid. Auto and shrink are telling it, take up as much space as you like and take up as little space as you can and still fit everything. Here, I'm going to copy this into Slack real quick so I can continue looking at the documentation. Oops. First, I'm going to forget how to use Slack. So let's see. I thought align middle would do that thing. Yeah, it's no align. Vertical alignment, so on. Import basics. Okay. Come on, align's got to be in there somewhere. Auto sizing, it'll take up the remaining space. Responsive adjustment, collapse cell offsets, block grids, vertical grids. Come on, where's alignment in here? It's got to be. I didn't see. Correct. The order of the classes in the class list never matters. Yep. And multiple classes are always separated by a space. Yep. Come on, where's the word align? Doesn't even appear anywhere else on this page, but it says flex grid is the old one. Seems very weird that I can't find this. Yeah, that's not. Horizontal alignment, vertical alignment, dot align middle should have worked. What if this were a div instead of a span? It did. Okay. So what I'm complaining about is the fact that this text. Oh, see, it's not taking up the full height. That's the problem. Okay. We can fix that. It still should have done. No, it still should have worked. I'm not going to waste any more time in class looking for this, but align middle. How's it looking for other people? It should have just been on the container, though. Let me inspect this thing. Here we go, align middle. There it is, align middle. Align items center. Display flex, align items center. If I lost my mind, what's the problem here? That ought to do it. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Okay, yeah, I will not waste any more class time with this. But I'll get it to work. What were we doing here? Okay, so we were making this thing that we're going to copy, right? And I can at least get this styled a little bit. Let's put a little space around the name because that's awfully tight in there. So in my CSS, that's in a span flick name, right? So how about I give that a little margin? 0 on top and bottom, 0.75 rim, 3/4 of a rim. That would be 12 pixels as it happens. Except foundation, I think, might actually redefine a rim as 10 pixels. But anyway, there's a little margin there. Not so squished up. That's nice. And somebody said something about a button group earlier. So we have these two buttons. And you can style buttons in Foundation. If you can find the section in the documentation about buttons, which I don't believe is in, I think it's under controls. Yes. There's button. So we already put the class button on stuff. But you can change the size. You can change the color. Like alert, we'll make it red. Success, we'll make it green. So if we wanted our add flick button to be green instead of blue, we could just say class success button. Order does not matter. Button does most of the styling, spaces it out, does the borders, etc. Success changes the color. Does it work? Sure does. So then delete seems like it should be red. I think it was alert, right? So we'll say alert button. Yeah, now it's red. What else we got? Ooh, warning's a nice gold. How about making fave that color? Warning. So you can see how using a CSS framework can make it easy to add some decent styling without too much trouble. Why on earth aren't you vertically centering, you jerk? All right, now we got some style on this thing. And then we want to copy it every time we make a new thing. Now that we've made this thing and styled it the way I want, even though we haven't kind of finished this feature, I'm going to commit real quick just so I can get back to this in case we screw something up. So I'm going to say add and style flick template. That's what I'm going to call this thing. This is my template. Oops.